This is an hybrid session, by the way, so also welcome to our audience online. So in 2021, UN Water decided on leveraging water for peace as the theme for the 2024 edition of World Water Day and World Toilet Day campaign, as well as the UN Water Development Report. My name is Noémie Plumier. I'm a legal officer at Human Right to Water, which is also one of the members of the UN Water Task Force of World Water Day, World Toilet Day 2024, co-coordinated by UNECE, UNESCO, and joined by, there's a quite long list, FAO, AHA, IGRAC, IWRA, OHCHR, SWA, UNEP, WHO, WMO, and the Geneva Water Hub. I'll quickly walk you through the agenda of today. We'll have a segment of opening remarks starting with the UN Water Vice Chair and one of the two co-coordinators of the task force, followed by a guest keynote speech video. And then we'll have a very diverse panel, but I'll let Martina, the other moderator of the day, introduce you to our panelists. Then we will have a moment for you to join and participate, roughly 20 minutes, where we will welcome any input, suggestions, and remarks from the floor. We'll circulate with a microphone, don't worry. And finally, we'll have closing remarks from the other co-coordinator of the task force. So without further ado, we will have our first opening remarks from Johannes Kuhlmann, that you all know, our UN Water Vice Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Noémie. Hello, everybody in Stockholm and wherever you are today. I'm really happy that we have this session. It's a UN Water organized session on the topic of the next World Water Day and World Water Development Report. And when we decided about this topic, we were not aware what is going on today really in the world. Of course, everybody is focused on one big war at the moment, but the truth is there are 27 wars in this world. So we were not really foreseeing the relevance of this topic when we decided about this topic, but actually this topic couldn't be more relevant and appropriate for us to really think about, talk about, and also do something about. And here I'm right in the middle of things. So peace is not only the absence of war, it is also the feeling non-threatened, it is the willingness and spirit to cooperate, and it is living in a sort of a harmony. And how can you do that? You can only do that when you have a common purpose, when you have information, when you have a goal, and when you want to reach something. And there are some very negative factors, of course, about that. And when you are suspicious about the people that live around you, or when you don't know what their goal is or what they're up to, then peace in the interpretation of more than just the absence of violence or war is more. There's more to it. And I think we have in the room some very experienced people that have worked a lot on water diplomacy. Now, water diplomacy is the key, say, methodology how to support peace in our world. But then peace also starts at the local level, or peace is also about local people. And we really need to think that peace, I believe, truly will only be possible if we also respect the basic human rights. So there is a very clear, I think, relation between this topic and the still very poor delivery of the human right to water and sanitation. So we really have to think about that nexus. And then there are some key messages, I think, that come from the UN Water, from the 2023 UN Water Conference. So there, of course, explicitly the human rights have been addressed. It was also a clear understanding in that conference that the hydrological cycle is a global common. And here we then see again that peace cannot only be created at the local level, because we all share that hydrological cycle. So there is a relation between a peaceful world and the willingness to cooperate, also, say, between Australia and India. Those countries have no direct connection through groundwater or river, but we are all in the same boat and connected through this global hydrological cycle. And then, of course, we have some, I think, very important possibilities how, when I said earlier we have to think and talk about it, but also do about it, then we need to think what are the catalyzers for peace. And those again differ from you need to be comfortable, you need to know, and you need to trust. And to create that, we really need a better cooperation on transparent information. We have heard the UN Secretary General asking for a global water information system. It is clear that we need to be educated, we need to know, we need to trust also stems from knowledge. You will not trust if you do not know anything normally, unless you're a very newborn child. So, and unfortunately, the decision makers in this world tend to be old men, not newborn children. So we need to educate the people, and from the UN Water Conference, we have this very clear call for a global education network that can support peace. So we have practical levers or practical elements that we need to connect to the discussion around hydro diplomacy or water diplomacy and peace building. And I think, and we have seen that now in New York through discussions on the follow-up, it is complicated in a world with 193 member states in the UN and with so many people that don't have access to the basic human rights or to education or information, but it is possible. So, and I think we will really need to show, we have the obligation to show what this combination of politics and diplomacy together with the practical elements that people will need to be able to touch and handle and develop together and formulate objectives together for their peaceful situation against global trade and water impact or the global hydrological cycle or water quality issues. I think we can do that. I think we have experts today in our meeting that have several propositions, and what we are going to do now, what has been decided yesterday, and that might be interesting also for the water and peace discussion, is that we want to create a one UN water strategy where human rights, peace, and all the other parts, the major game changers that have been discussed in the conference in March in New York, should be addressed in terms of theory of change. How can we get beyond what blocks, what are the normal roadblocks at the moment, and what are the enablers to have people more, to create the willingness amongst people to not only look into their own little garden and think I'm peaceful in my own house and I'm going to lock all doors, but the peace comes from feeling comfortable with whomever is next to you. So I feel pretty comfortable with Noemi being next to me, so I hand peacefully the word back to her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johannes, for those positive and solution-oriented opening remarks, but at the same time very grounded on our current challenges. And you've been in the heart of it in New York for the past month, but also reiterates the importance of the human rights to water and sanitation, which is dear to Human Right to Water mission. I'll hand over now to Sonia Koppel to continue this discussion, Secretary of the Water Convention, UNECE, and co-coordinator of the World Water Day 2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the co-coordinators of the World Water Day 2024 Task Force, UNESCO and UNECE, I would like to also welcome you very much to this seminar today. Yesterday evening, we were in a jazz cafe and we heard a song by the band about rivers of peace. And that was very nice to see that also basically the local population, the musical groups start to consider this topic. And that's exactly what we want to achieve with the campaign which lies ahead of us up to the World Water Day 2024. We would really like to mobilize the people on the street, the citizens, the youth, and we need for this stories from the ground We need you to mobilize your networks. We need your ideas and inputs. And that's one of the goals of the session today, to set off the path to this World Water Day 2024 next year. And through this, then obviously also motivate cooperation and peace at higher level between governments, between countries, etc. And indeed, looking back at the history, water has often been a source of cooperation. Many of the peace agreements include water issues. Some of the oldest agreements have been actually on water. Cities are often built on rivers and often on transboundary rivers. We can also see, however, on the other hand, cooperation at local level. For example, I live in Switzerland, and if we go to one region called Valais, we can see many so-called BIS. These are old irrigation channels where actually brought down the water for irrigation from the top of the mountains to the rivers, and they really signed contracts between different farmers in order to cooperate and share the water along those systems. And such systems exist in many parts of the world as well. So water for peace indeed is important between countries, but also communities, different water users, etc. And as I said, there are positive developments, also new agreements being signed over the recent years, such as, for example, on the Bupusa or Songwe Basin in Southern Africa. But also we hear that there's an increasing risk of conflicts due to climate change and other pressures, not only climate change, also increasing use of water. And according to what was said this morning, we can really see in a conflict database that conflicts are going up on water. On the other hand, the issue is increasingly being discussed at global level. As Johannes said, for example, it was even discussed at the UN Security Council several times already. The UN Water Conference in March had a specific dedicated dialogue on water for cooperation. Senegal made the topic cooperation as a priority for the World Water Forum last year. The high-level panel on water and peace also addressed this issue. And there is also increased attention to the topic of water in conflict situation. We could also see that transboundary cooperation is, for example, included among the Sustainable Development Goals, target 6.5. And all the countries are now asked to regularly report on their transboundary cooperation according to the SDG indicator 6.5.2 on transboundary water cooperation, for which now the third reporting cycle is ongoing. But we can see that even in the existing cooperation frameworks, increasingly tensions are coming up, and actually quite many of those existing agreements lack a dispute settlement mechanism. Or they have a fixed water allocation which are not fit for the future changes. So these are some of the issues which the international community needs to address. And here I would say that, for example, the United Nations Water Convention play an important role to help countries address these challenges by setting global rules, but also by actually helping the countries in cooperation on the ground, like the Water Convention hosted by UNESC, which I'm heading. The Water Convention actually has its origins in the security community. So it was actually in the early 90s when in the former Soviet Union, the countries broke up. The OSCE, the Conference for Security and Cooperation in Europe, mandated the development of the Water Convention. So there's really a clear link between the Water Convention and peace. And the convention has also evolved, for example, by creating an implementation committee in 2012, which exactly helps the countries to address and prevent and resolve conflicts like it's currently happening in an advisory procedure between two countries in Southeastern Europe. So in order to conclude and actually lead forward to the panel, as I said, we want to hear those stories from the global level, from the regional level, from the local level, today in the panel, and then in the next few months. Also at the next World Water Week next year, which will also have a certain focus on this topic. And that's what we would like to encourage you all to do. And as always, let's also start as local ambassadors at the local level between communities, spread the messages and thereby highlight the importance of water and water cooperation even in our daily lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. To highlight the importance, again, of all levels of participation and engagement if we want to achieve and implement human right to water and sanitation, but also that goes hand by hand with the water cooperation to leverage peace, and that's why we are here today. So now we will screen a video of our guest, Mr. Danilo Turk, President of the Republic of Slovenia from 2007 until 2012, and the chair of the Global High-Level Panel on Water and Peace.
Good afternoon to all the participants of this important event on leveraging water for peace. I am addressing you from Slovenia, a country that has only 2 weeks ago experienced the greatest water disaster in the country's entire recorded history. The terrible floods that have affected our country have caused destruction of thousands of homes, and much of infrastructure was destroyed. The total damage is estimated in billions of euros. Fortunately, there were very few human casualties. People did not panic. And human solidarity, both national and international, is now in full display. Tens of thousands of volunteers are working day and night to remove the rubble and to rebuild the necessary infrastructure. But why is this experience relevant to our discussion today? Big floods tend to generate solidarity among people and cooperation among states. People, when affected by brutal force of water, join forces to overcome the tragedy. Solidarity and social cohesion tend to prevail. International cooperation is strengthened, and all this contributes to social stability and thus to peace. But is it necessary to wait for disasters to happen? Many, although I must say not all, water disasters can be prevented. Internationally, transboundary water cooperation represents an effective form of prevention of many water disasters. It is not enough to rely on solidarity when water disasters occur. It is necessary to build solidarity by means of prevention. Preventive action, in particular transboundary water cooperation itself, strengthens international solidarity, stability, and peace. Now, these basic lessons have been relearned in all recent water disasters. For example, earlier this year in Southern Africa and last year in Pakistan, to mention just two most important examples. But then there is another problem, the problem of water shortages and prolonged droughts. Unlike floods that tend to create solidarity and cooperation, prolonged droughts create competition for water and forced migration. This often leads to violent conflict. Water cooperation, in particular transboundary and regional water cooperation, can go a long way to prevent such deterioration and contribute to the maintenance of social stability and peace. Has the world learned these lessons? Paradoxically, the level of international water cooperation is still inadequate despite the strong evidence in its favor. Now, this will have to change. Global warming will exacerbate the problems of water, including massive floods and prolonged droughts. Water is the main medium of climate change. The changes in the global water cycle are already visible, although not yet fully understood. Ultimately, all these phenomena are likely to have an adverse effect on the international stability and peace. It is therefore vitally necessary to turn the tables. Water must not be a cause of conflict. Water must be an instrument of peace. This is a political imperative of our time. Now, what has to be done? I believe that our discussion today will produce useful suggestions in that regard. Some of the relevant directions are already quite clear. For example, first, recent water disasters, such as the last year's floods in Pakistan, have shown the need for enhanced regional cooperation in developing transboundary water projects. Those projects should strengthen stability and peace in the entire subcontinent. Second, armed conflicts such as the one in Ukraine have shown the importance of protection of water infrastructure and water resources. The future efforts for peace will have to produce mechanisms that will make water cooperation a permanent feature of peace. Third, the deepening water problems, such as those affecting Iraq today, call for transboundary and regional cooperation that has to be brought to a new level to strengthen the basis of peace. Fourth, in areas of deepening development problems exacerbated by political instability and conflict, such as the region of Sahel in Africa, water management and water cooperation should become essential parts of efforts for economic recovery, development, and peace. And finally, and most important, the international community must take full advantage of the available multilateral mechanisms such as the two United Nations Water Conventions. It is encouraging that one of these conventions, originally applicable only in Europe, is open for accession to all UN member states and that the number of state parties is growing. There are many ways in which water can be leveraged for peace. Let us use the 2023 Stockholm Water Week to explore them thoroughly and to identify the ways forward. I wish you all success in your deliberations.
So since we're running 5 minutes behind schedule, I will invite the other moderator, Martina Klimes, advisor at the Water and Peace Unit of SEWI, to join me here on the floor and introduce you to the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Naomi, and welcome everyone. I hope you are having a great first day of the World Water Week. And as we've heard, water and peace is really about people. And what we need to do now, we need to hear stories from different transboundary basins, from other contexts, where we will better understand these different tools. So now I would like to bring our distinguished panel, and I will introduce them one by one, and I will give them questions. So first will be Hyacinth Banseka, Technical Director of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. And Mr. Banseka has over 20 years of experience and 17 years of experience working with water resources and climate change in different parts of Africa. And the first question, Mr. Banseka, is, can you please give us a specific example from your basin how shared waters have been transformed from a source of conflict to a potential crisis into an instrument of peace? And what made this change possible?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Anna, and good afternoon, everybody. As you rightly said, I'm working as the Technical Director of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. And as you know, the Lake Chad Basin is one of the largest inland drainage basins in Africa that with all these waters entering into the Lake Chad, which is like the 4th largest lake in Africa. The lake is home to the Lake Chad Basin area. I need to give you a background before I give this example. Is home to over 50 million inhabitants, and it is shared between 6 riparian countries at the moment in terms of member states. But in terms of the hydrological basin, we have 4 countries that are riparian countries to the lake. That is Cameroon, Nigeria, Niger, and Chad. And then the basin extends to Central African Republic, which is sort of the southern, supplies water to the southern portion of the lake, and also to Libya and Algeria and Sudan. So these are the countries that are in the hydrological basin. But in terms of the member states, we have the 4 riparian countries that are listed together with Central African Republic and Libya. So the Sudan still has an observer status, and the other countries have not yet joined. Now, in terms of an example, I think I'll go back to what you have all heard about the Lake Chad Basin Commission, Lake Chad Basin area, about climate change and the receding or shrinking lake. Now, the shrinkage or the receding of the waters of the lake created what we call some islands. As the water receded, some islands emerged within the Lake Chad Basin, within the lake area, and this led to issues of ownership in terms of legal status of these islands that have emerged because of the lake that has receded. There is new land that suddenly shows up. There are new resources, and there are new people there. What is the nationality of these people? Who owns this land? And all of this. And this situation in 1983, actually, because fishermen from Nigeria gradually followed the new land that was created, it gradually led to occupied the land and followed the waters. It gradually led to a conflict between the Nigerian fishermen and the Chadian fishermen. And even over land in terms of the pastoralism. So this actually resulted eventually in a conflict between Nigeria and Chad, an armed conflict that resulted in the death of approximately 84 people. And what happened after this is Nigeria and Chad had to come together and do a negotiation, met and signed an agreement. And it is this agreement that brings about the importance of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. Because it was agreed in this agreement, they will suspend all hostilities, and the Lake Chad Basin Commission was mandated to work with the two countries to define the boundaries, to sort of work and agree on where are the limits of the boundaries between these two countries. And as we talk, since 1983, there has really been no conflict, no real armed conflict between Nigeria and Chad as neighbors. So the commission took up this mandate. So this is where the status of the commission as a legal instrument became very valuable in terms of transforming this conflict that was there into an instrument for peace. So that is the concrete example I'll give for now. Over to you, moderator.
We have many stakeholders from different transboundary basins who are listening to us, and you gave an example and you said, they reached an agreement and since then everything was great. Could you please help us understand what led to this agreement? What were the three key ingredients for this successful cooperation to happen? Because we know many transboundary basins, it takes decades to negotiate an agreement. So if you were to share with your counterparts for other basins your experience or experience that led to this successful agreement, what would that be? What would be your main advice?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think the key instrument that led to the success of the resolution of this conflict was the existence of the Lake Chad Basin Commission as a cooperation framework between the countries. And if you go back, I would say the key ingredients for this are first the political will that the countries had to establish this cooperation. So the countries since 1964 recognized that there was need for them to work together and establish the Lake Chad Basin Commission as a cooperation framework. They did not only do that, but they also gave the commission some very clear mandates. And it is very interesting to see that in the mandate of the commission was not only linked to promoting sustainable use of the water resources and the environmental resources of the basin, but also related to regional integration, peace, and security. I think this is quite important for us in the Lake Chad Basin Commission because our countries recognize that they can use this instrument called the Lake Chad Basin Commission as an instrument for peace and security. So you have the political will, we have this the establishment of this institutional mechanism that facilitates, that creates a platform where the countries can meet and discuss. Within the commission, we have the Council of Ministers, we have the Summit of Heads of States, together with the Executive Secretariat. And these are bodies that meet regularly. So it is not only an issue of addressing conflicts like the one that I explained, but these bodies that meet regularly, the Council of Ministers, the Summit of Heads of State, they help a lot in even preventing conflict and resolving conflicts that we don't even, most of the rest of the world do not even know about. So just in summary, I would say is the political will of the founding fathers of the Commission. It is the willingness to cooperate and the establishment of guiding principles for functioning. One thing that is important in the Lake Chad Basin Commission, which helps a lot in terms of our functioning and in terms of facilitating peace, is the core principles or values, core values of solidarity and equity. These are some of the two core values that the Commission sort of works on. It is about equity, it is about solidarity, both in terms of decision-making and in terms of the functioning of the Commission. There is one instrument that I would like to mention, which came up, and I think this is from the experiences that have been learned over time. In 2012, the Commission, the member states established the Lake Chad Basin Water Charter. This is now the current legal instrument that not only helps to facilitate dialogue, but also a tool for preventing conflict. So it is really anchored on the principles that are found in the UN Water Conventions. So there is really this very strong instrument binding the 6 countries, which have practically been ratified now by 4 countries. We are pending ratification by 2 countries. So this is a very strong legal instrument that is an annex. It supports the Forthcoming Convention that created the Commission, and which all the countries approved in 2012, and which is already, as of now, being implemented. The countries, even though the Water Charter has not come into force, it is already being implemented by the countries in terms of decision-making, in terms of project planning, in terms of investment planning within the basin.
Thank you very
much.
So
I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
This has been a fascinating example, and I think that if we would like to know more, we can reach to Mr. Banseka at the Lake Chad Basin Commission to learn more about how they really managed to get this political will. And our second speaker in the panel is Elizabeth Ugo, Director of Water Quality Control and Sanitation from the Federal Ministry of Water Resources in Abuja, Nigeria. So Elizabeth, welcome to the panel. And we know that your country has become a member of the UN Water Convention. And we would like to know, why has your country acceded to the convention? Because we know that there are many countries across the globe who are considering this. And if you can tell us what have been the benefits for water and peace from this step. So Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Martina. Thank you, and good day, everyone there. For Nigeria, we acceded to the Water Convention that was during the last UN Water Conference in New York. That was when Nigeria was to be a member or a party to that convention now as a country. And we know that the UN Water Convention is really an international instrument, that promotes peace and stability in countries, globally. And so having that in mind, Nigeria thought it wise that we could join as a country. Because you see, Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. And we're also seeing and hoping that with Nigeria being a member, that will also encourage other African countries, particularly at the West African region, to be part of the Water Convention. Because the benefits that will derive from this convention, we see that it will promote, like I said, peace. It will also improve the livelihood. There will be stability in the country, and to help resolve conflicts, areas of conflict as relates to water in the region. And so that is why Nigeria thought it wise to be a member or to accede to the Water Convention. And luckily, we admitted in March this year at the UN Water Conference. And in all that too, where we said that it's good that we are now part of it, we see that Nigeria will now be like a catalyst to encourage other African countries, because there are various benefits that will include, I talked about conflict prevention. It also sustains development in the region and also for human well-being, because with that, Nigeria can also get support. Nigeria is a member of other regional bodies, water cooperation, like Hyacinth mentioned, the Lake Charge Commission. We also have the Niger Basin Commission that we are part of it. So Nigeria joining this convention will make the cooperation in the sub-region, the other bodies, to be stronger. We can use the experience of the Water Convention to be able also to manage situations at the regional or sub-regional, at the regional level, when we talk of the Chad Basin and the Niger Basin Commission. That is also an advantage to us as a country. And it will also help Nigeria, gaining from the experience of the Water Convention, to be able to manage our in-country integrated water resources management in the country. So we'll be able to also manage that. So there are a lot of benefits for us, we see as a nation, that joining the convention will be beneficial to the country and will also promote peace, promote stability, not just in Nigeria, but in our other bodies, the transboundary waters and commission we have, like the Lake Chad and the Niger Basin. That will also be an advantage to us as a country. So that's the main reason, as a nation, we decided to go on and join the convention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and congratulations again on the membership.
Thank you.
And a follow-up question, and please try to be concise. Not your fault, but we are running slightly behind. Is if you can give us a specific example in what way cooperation on water, environment, and climate strengthen peace and stability. Can you think of it could be local level, regional level, whichever you would prefer.
Okay, I'll say now to be specific, there's just from what Hyacinth said last, talking about the water charter. So this water chapter now is like the agreement that binds, for instance, in the Lake Chad, countries that are party to the Lake Chad Commission. And so I remember, or I recall, in sometime in northern Nigeria, there was this issue of farmers wanting to plant sugarcane. And you know that sugarcane will require a lot of water to be able to grow and then mature to have the time they will harvest it. And so because of that water charter that is on ground, so we had to also have meetings and agreements with other countries that are part of the Lake Chad Basin. And when the countries met and then they agreed, before Nigeria or those farmers in the northern region were able to go ahead with planting of that sugarcane, so that it doesn't create conflicts. You have also issues about farmers and headers where you have conflicts, and then there are projects that the commission, we now have to do so that the farmers will have their own side, like you said, the demarcation, so as to prevent conflicts between headers and farmers. So these are a few of the examples we have to be able to have stability at the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was an excellent example, and I would encourage anyone who would like to know more about this, please do reach out to Elizabeth. This has really been very interesting. And our next speaker is Walid Saleh, Head of Water and Natural Resources Program and Head of Office Aden, FAO Yemen. And Walid, you work across the Middle East and North Africa for many years. You have a lot of experience with programs related to natural resources. And now you manage the natural resources program in Yemen. And you've been involved in a notable project by United Nations Peace Building Fund, which implemented by FAO. And can you give us an example of how this project reduced local conflicts over water resources in Yemen? And what were the most important lessons? Yemen is a very fragmented country. We have many different districts controlled by different fractions of the conflict parties and different warlords. So this is a really fascinating example. So please tell us your experience. Share with us your experience.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to participate in this important session. I joined FAO Yemen about 8 years ago, and the first thing I learned is the problem of water conflict. Just to set the stage for my speech today, first thing I learned that water conflict and the casualties over water conflict are the second largest casualties after warfare. More than 5,000 to 8,000 people get killed because of the water conflict. Second, Yemen is a very water scarce country, despite the fact that the first dam in civilization was founded in Yemen by Queen Sheba, if you are familiar with that. And they have, previously, they have a lot of knowledge how to manage their water. And during Queen Sheba, Yemen was called the happy or the prosperous Yemen because of the abundance of water. Now, this did not go by me, and I said, well, maybe we should do something about this. And in my previous job as the regional head for MENA region in the United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment, and Health, we did work in a system which we call the Human Integrated Management Approach. And this approach consists of 4 frameworks, but for the time's sake, I will mention the 3 principles that the concept is found. First, social cohesion and sustainable livelihood for Hima communities should be taken into consideration. There should be a criteria on property rights and resources use, which is based on the carrying capacity and regeneration of resources. And the third principle is about the environmental protection and conservation and adaptive management. These in mind, and we published, me and another colleague, several articles on this, and of course it is much more than just 3 principles. I put this in mind and to see how we can tackle this issue. Because the problem when there is in Yemen, it's a tribal system, as you may know. And tribal law is really very rigid. It has no movement or flexibility, let's put it this way. Once a conflict, and especially if there is a bloodshed over water, then the tribes would issue a decree that this water is doomed not to be used by anybody, meaning that anybody try even to use it, he might subject himself to a grave danger. So the communities, especially when they have only this source of water, then they have no alternative but to walk about 10, 15 kilometers to fetch water for their livelihoods. And most of the time, who take this job, it's the young girls and also the boys. And walking this distance in a rugged and rural area that subject them to a lot of hardship and sometimes abuse or harassments. So at FAO, we created what we called the Water User Association. Basically, I want to put the community together. I want them to sit in the same room and discuss what problems they have. The Water User Associations were subjected to be members, farmers from male and female. And we made it like kind of a law that 30% of the members should be female. And why we did that? Because up to 67% of the agriculture workers are actually women. And they are the one who basically take care of their fields and farms and eventually manage the food at home. and they are the one who was involved also in the irrigation. So they are directly subjected to the water without having a say, because the men, it's a male, of course, dominated society. Of course, it was not easy for the men to accept this, but to make the story short, eventually we succeed. And we created the boards, members of this Water Users Association for each of the community with the defined geographic boundaries to make sure that the resources shared is within this geographic boundaries. And this board is selected by election, not by the tribal heads as they used to do before. So women in this board was also represented by 30%. We did a lot of training, and one of the training was related to conflict resolution and how to mediate within the community. Obviously, we want them to start thinking about resolving these conflicts, because some of the conflicts, unfortunately, stay for years to be resolved. I mean, one of the conflicts that we came through was started in 1886. So many years, and nobody managed to really resolve the conflict. And the story there is a woman, there's three tribes sharing a source of water, and one day a woman shepherd was taking her livestock to another side that belongs to another tribe, and a man tried to attack her. She killed him, and then the problem started. The women in the water user associations were empowered enough to talk about their problems. And of course, because they are the one who's suffering, they are the one who's walking the distance, and they are the one who really take the responsibility of this bring and make water available for everybody.
Thank you, Walid.
So one of the first cases. Yes, sorry.
Thank you very much. We are a little bit running out of time, but thank you very much for highlighting these important issues. We know that women actually play active mediators in many of the local conflicts in Yemen. And for example, local organizations led by women like Water for Peace, led by Mona Lukman, are extremely successful. So I'm sure you also came across that organization in your work, but thank you very much for sharing this important example of such a crucial issue. And now we will move to our next panelist, and that's Maha Ska. Maha is Associate Expert for Climate, Peace and Security at the Policy and Mediation Division at the Department of Political and Peace Building Affairs at the UN in New York. And she also represents the PPA in the Climate and Security Mechanism. It's a mechanism where different UN agencies work together on these climate and security issues, trying to overcome the silos. And we would like to know, Maha, can you give us some more details about how DPPA supports action in the field of climate, peace and security, and how this relates to water? So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning from New York. Thank you very much for the opportunity to brief about this topic and about how we are integrating climate change considerations in our department's conflict prevention, peace building, and peacemaking work, and how this links to our discussion today about water and peace. For us, really the magnitude of the climate crisis means that it affects everything on our planet. And this includes, of course, food and water security, economic development, human mobility, and by extension today, this means that it affects also peace and security. And while we are not experts by any means on climate change, we know that our work must take account the effects of climate change. This is because, first, more than half of current UN field-based special political missions are deployed in highly climate vulnerable countries and regions. If I may ask you to please put on the next slide exactly. And this is really no coincidence. We're seeing that our missions around the world are confronted with the growing impact of climate change, and they're finding themselves having to take into consideration climate change when they do political analysis and early warning and prevention strategies and mediation efforts. And on this map, you see how fragility fragility risks is overlaid with exposure to climate change. Next slide, please. We also have seen that many situations on the Security Council's agenda are evidence of this confluence between climate and security risks. So the Security Council of the United Nations has explicitly recognized the destabilizing effects of climate change in both country and region-specific resolutions, which you see on this map. And this includes the mandate of 10 special political missions, which my department supports, as well as peacekeeping operations. And there are actually a couple of reasons why the climate, peace, and security agenda has become so prominent in recent years, and colleagues who have spoken before me have highlighted a lot of them. But if I may add, one is because affected countries and communities are speaking more forcefully about this at the global level and also at the Security Council. And the volume and scientific level of research into this topic has really grown exponentially, which is providing new evidence to the linkages between climate change and peace. And perhaps more importantly, the effects of climate change sadly continue to accelerate, which means that the topic is unlikely to fade away. And as you well know, almost 3/4 of all recent disasters are actually water related. Now, also outside the Security Council, we've seen momentum grow. Just to give you a perspective from New York, there is a group of friends on climate security that is now comprised of 65 member states and is quite active. And we've also seen this topic being taken up by the climate community. So COP27 last year was a big step in this regard. The Egyptian COP27 presidency launched a flagship initiative called Climate Responses for Sustaining Peace, which DPPA, my department, has joined as a partner. And we're also looking very much forward to COP28 later this year under the presidency of the UAE, where we know that the linkages between climate change and peace and security will be an important topic again. And there will actually be a dedicated day on relief, recovery, and peace for the first time in COP processes. Overall, I'll say we're witnessing a shift really from focusing only on climate security, the security implications, towards a focus on the opportunities for peace, and specifically how peace building and climate action can reinforce each other. And truly, climate adaptation and peace building do share a lot of the same objectives. So it is important that we work together with development and climate actors and peace and security actors on integrated approach. And on this, we work as part of the climate security mechanism together with the UNDP, UNEP, and DPO, the Department of Peacekeeping Operations, which is an interagency initiative. And our objective is to build the capacity of policymakers and practitioners to better understand and address the linkages between climate change, peace, and security, both within the UN system, but also beyond. Next slide, please. We do this through 4 main priority areas, and I'll try to be short, and I'm of course very happy to answer any follow-up questions later. We do this first by building capacity across the UN system in the field. So we're deploying climate, peace, and security advisors. We now have 5 of them in Somalia, Iraq, the Office of the Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, in West Africa and the Sahel, and in Central Africa. And there's also climate security advisor in South Sudan. And we know that other missions will likely follow. There is really a lot of demand from the field for such advisors. We're also investing in the capacity of UN staff to better understand and analyze and address climate-related security risks. We have developed dedicated training on this. The latest one was actually carried out in June for colleagues working in mission contexts and non-mission contexts in the MENA region. And water scarcity and transboundary water cooperation were key themes of this training. And also, we're really leveraging data and innovation. We're, for example, beginning to use satellite imagery and machine learning to boost early warning capacities. That was for the first kind of priority area of work. The second one is supporting analysis and action. So we're, for example, helping to integrate a climate lens into our core business within DPPA, for example, by providing technical advice to the Peace Building Fund, and which is actually increasingly investing in climate sensitive projects, over $85 million US, and 40 projects since 2017. A thematic review of the PBF, the Peace Building Fund's climate security projects, was just finalized, and water scarcity was featured as a key theme. I'll be sharing a link with you shortly to this review if you're interested. And we're also working with UN country teams to support a risk analysis and risk management strategies. And for example, last year we conducted a climate security study in Iraq, and we're doing one at the moment for the resident coordinator in Mauritania, and another one for our mission in Afghanistan. And third and last point is we're supporting knowledge co-generation, advocacy, and partnerships. And for my department, this means to continue really being a thought leader on emerging themes of this agenda through research, through writing practice notes. And for example, we've recently published practice notes on how climate-related security risks interact with gender. This relates very much so to the presentation by Walid earlier, and how these two agendas intersect. We've also developed another one on the implications of climate change for mediation and peace processes. We'll be sharing the links in the chat shortly. And then finally, we have established a really vibrant community of practice within the UN system of over 400 colleagues from 35 UN entities. And please feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in joining that.
Thank you, Maha, for this very comprehensive overview. I will now ask you, and please be very, very concise. You can just list a few bullet points. We imagine that this work, it cannot be easy. So what are the key opportunities and challenges? Just if you think of listing a few points, because please share this with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this question. I'll try to be brief. We know that climate-related security risks often manifest themselves through the hydrological cycle, both because of scarcity and abundance of water, as we heard earlier. And so one of the key challenges this represents is that, of course, water is indispensable for human dignity, resilience, sustainable development. However, despite relevant provisions in international law, water installations have regularly been targeted in armed conflict. Additionally, issues of water and issues of peace and security are handled often by different communities, different ministries, different experts at national, local, international levels, and even at the UN, action on water for peace is often fragmented. So no entity or group of entities is really responsible for promoting water and peace interventions. That is the first challenge, I would say. The second is on the linkages between water and peace and how this relates to gender. We know that women and girls are affected in very specific and also disproportionate ways for many various reasons, including socioeconomic norms, but also their roles as caregivers and providers of water for their families. And in many places, this means that women and girls will have to walk even further to fetch water, which will increase not only their vulnerability, but also their coping capacity in the face of accelerating effects to climate change. And then third challenge is, of course, the transboundary nature of shared water. Action in one country has consequences over another, and this creates a potential for grievances with ramifications for entire regions. Also, most countries, unfortunately, do not have all their transboundary water basins covered by operational agreements. This was for the challenges. Now, if you allow me to move on to the opportunities we see. As we've just heard now from Walid's very inspiring example in Yemen, water can be an important driver for cooperation and peace. At the local level, community water management bodies or water user associations have proven that they can be means for reconciliation, trust building, and cooperative management that goes actually well beyond the water sector. Other benefits include, for example, improved access to sanitation services, which provide incentive for cooperation over perhaps other issues that may be more contested. And also, we know that water-related peace-building efforts have made important contributions to reconciling conflicting interests and promoting coexistence. We know that historically, cooperation over water has been more common than conflict, fortunately. And we know that 80% of UN member states actually share rivers or lakes with their neighbors. And in many cases, this sets the stage for cooperative relationships. We just heard now about the example from the Lake Chad Basin Commission, so I won't repeat that, but it's just an example.
Yeah, thank you very much. We do need to move on, but thank you very much for this wonderful presentation and congratulations on your work. And last but not least, I have a very fascinating fact for you. Do you know that football has the ability to reach 5 billion people? Everybody knows football, everybody plays football. So our last panelist is Emily Brooks from an organization called Football for Peace. She's the international board member. And before we start, I would like to congratulate Spain on their victory in the World Championship. And we would like to invite Emily to help us understand better how football is contributing to peace. We know football brings a lot of joy to many people. Do you have any specific examples and success story from a water-scarce country?
Thank you, Martina, and it's a pleasure to be joining you all today. I want to echo the huge congratulations to Spain and condolences to England, who also made the final. Good question, and I think the best place to start in trying to answer that is to echo what you've just said. Football touches 5 billion people globally. That's not 5 million, that's 5 billion. That's more than any other sport in the world. And that's actually more than any other religion, which just shows the power that football has. And we have to ask ourselves why. What is it about this sport that is so unique and so much more powerful than any other sport? And I think the actor Matthew McConaughey said it best when he made what was a very bold comment, statement, that the soccer ball is the greatest invitation on earth. It's an equalizer and it's a peacemaker. And this is because you can be anywhere in the world and you don't need a fancy pitch, you don't need expensive equipment, you don't even need to speak the language, and someone can kick you a ball and that's it. It's as simple as that. You're in the game and you're part of the team. And no other sport can do that. So when we look at, sporting and football examples related to peace, I think the oldest example that I can give you is the famous Christmas Day truce match, which during World War I, British and German troops laid down their weapons to play a game of football. And then there's the incredible example of Chelsea legend Didier Drogba, who made a plea during the World Cup to the rebels in Ivory Coast to stop fighting. And this resulted in a war being stopped there that had been going on for years. And then Kashmir, so a hot topic zone for water because of the Indus River. It's, disputed territory between India and Pakistan, most militarized zone in the world, and no more than 10 people can gather in a group because of conflict there. Yet the football club Royal Kashmir can pack out the stadium during a game with well over 30,000 football fans, and not a single violent incident or conflict would take place. So that's the power of football. And I've been there and lucky enough to see this, and it's pretty incredible, the transformation and the impact that a football club has had on a region. And then there's another interesting example that came up most recently during the African Cup of Nations. And actually, Ethiopia played Egypt, which of course is a very high tension zone when it comes to water. And there was simultaneously a conflict mapping exercise going on within that region. And there was a very clearly defined period where there was dramatically reduced conflict and civil unrest in a certain time span. And when they looked at it, they couldn't understand why. What has all of a sudden caused this widespread peace in a conflict region? And it actually turned out to be the exact same time that the African Cup of Nations was going on. So those are just a few examples, but it really highlights the power of football. And it's why our co-founder Cash, and former footballer himself, quite often says that the true power of football has yet to been unlocked. So that's, I guess, our mission as an organization to succeed in that.
That is really fascinating, Emilie, and thank you for sharing with us these examples. And the last question would be, how is football using this enormous fame to raise awareness about water issues across the globe? Can you give us a few examples?
Yes, and I'll keep it short. I mean, we've been successful in delivering programs for years in, very hard to reach and troubled communities. We do that through awareness raising peace matches, our peace centers that are ambassadored by players, our MVP program, which awards most valuable peacemakers and upskills youth in their communities to carry out good actions towards certain issues, and water being one of them. We also always use, and from day one, use players and role models as part of our educational delivery, because sometimes there's hard topics to talk about, or they're not quite as engaging enough, and especially youth will lose interest or switch off. Whereas if you get a player to deliver that educational information, it is a completely different story. They will listen to every word. I mean, someone like, Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, tomorrow could put out a video on, I don't know, how to brush your teeth. I guarantee you millions will watch it. And then the toothbrush that he used will probably, sell out the next day in the store. So the point that I'm trying to make is there's a number of ways that we can use football, as well as the X factor of football, for good in a situation like the global water crisis. If we just look at the numbers, there's somewhere between 2 billion and 3 billion that are affected by water scarcity. Football touches 5 billion. So even if half or a third of those people, those football fans, were to positively contribute towards the world's water crisis, that would have a profound effect. So I guess we find ourselves in a unique position as an organization that we can talk at the government level, we can talk to the football world, and then the grassroots. And that's how we use football diplomacy to tackle an issue like water. And I guess in light of all this, and as part of our contribution, in the coming months, we're going to be launching, if you like, the first football-led water campaign on a global scale. Because we really do believe that if done right, we can really activate communities, governments, etc., to help tackle a global issue like this.
Thank you very much, Emilie. This has been fascinating. And thank you all the panelists for really nice contributions. And now I know that here in the room in Stockholm, we also have many experts. Everybody coming to the World Water Week is expert in their own right. So I would like to now invite people from the room here to come to me and share your own stories with the success of how water contributed to peace. Or if you like, you could also pose questions to our panelists. So who would like to join me here? I see that Zayat from UNESCO is coming. Thank you very much. Okay, and one more person who, okay, I was hoping for a gender balance contribution, but it's okay. Please feel free. You have a question, okay? If it's quick. Okay. So Zayed, please, you can use that microphone.
Sure.
And if you share with us briefly reflection on your personal experience or how UNESCO works with issues related to water and peace, or reflections what you have heard.
Yeah, so there's been one representative, I guess, from our region, from Yemen. So in a region which is water scarce, where all of the countries except one share transboundary water resources in the region, with climate change and decreased population, the stakes are very high in the region. And the chances for conflict are high. However, you don't see any conflicts on transboundary waters. You see countries are committed to peace. Recently, Iraq acceded to the Water Convention, which is a high commitment for dialogue, for peace in that basin. I think what's needed and the approach that we're trying to take to move the dialogue around water cooperation from just water allocation and making water the business of everyone. We've been speaking in the water community that water is essential for livelihood, for prosperity, for agriculture, for industry. But whenever we're talking negotiations or talking about water, it's only that closed box of the water community. We haven't seen a negotiation team that includes people from agriculture, from tourism, from economy. So these are the people that really know the value of water in their lives. And expanding that and involving these people, I think that would leverage water for peace, leverage the livelihoods and people that know the value of peace.
Thank you very much for giving a very specific example. And now this gentleman, I'm sorry I cannot read your name. If you can just please tell us your name or your affiliation.
Franz Matzner with the International Campaign for Tibet, and I'll try to be extra brief because I now feel really guilty. So I just wanted to, I'm very inspired by the idea that security is not the absence of war and conflict. It's a process in a solidification of the absence of comfort and security itself. And I think it's really important to look at places where that discomfort is a reality, even if there isn't the war, to look for solutions in those areas. And of course, representing Tibet, I think this is very important to raise the Himalayas and what's happening in Tibet, because it's the headwaters of so many rivers that, up to 2 billion people rely on. But many conversations sort of pretend, I'll be honest, that the water doesn't come from there because it's politically difficult to talk about it. So we need to be able to look beyond the politics of what people don't want to talk about and acknowledge that there's a risk and something that needs to be solved, not pretend that water doesn't begin where it really does just because it's convenient.
Thank you very much. I think if anybody here in the room would like to ask more questions, you will be available here. And 1 minute question to Lisa, because we would like to have a gender balanced reflections. So if you can just say your question very loudly and I can repeat it. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Lisa pointed to the difficult situation in Ukraine and asked how we can conflict-proof transboundary basins, because I think many of you are aware what is happening in that region. And she mentioned the example between Ukraine and Moldova. Would any of our panelists like to make a brief comment on this situation? How to conflict-proof transboundary basins. We have 2 minutes left. And this is like a conflict-proof from armed conflicts. That's an important distinction. Not from conflicts, political tensions, but armed conflicts. So, Maha, maybe, would you like to take this question based on the work that you are doing at the UN?
Thank you for this question. I'm not sure I understood it correctly, but if I may address it from our perspective at the Department of Political Affairs and our special political missions in Africa, Sahel, Horn of Africa, but also in Central Africa, we have the UNRCCA are really embracing the opportunity for managing water resources as a part of prevention and sustaining peace. And I know they stand ready to support member states and regional organizations in this regard.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think that can be a topic of a future discussion, how to conflict-proof transboundary basins. And I think that I know we had a very lively discussion online, and I do hope that many of you who joined us online will be with us in person next year in Stockholm when we'll be discussing similar issues. And I think now I will turn back to Naomi, who will take us through the last part of this session.
Thank you very much. I would like now to welcome Mr. Abu Amani, Director of the Division of Water Science Secretariat at UNESCO, and the other co-coordinator of the 2024 Task Force for World Water Day and World Toilet Day.
Thank you very much, Naomi and Martina, for the excellent facilitation of this session, which was a very exciting session and a very rich session. My name is Abu Amani. I'm one of the co-coordinator of the 2024 campaign, Leveraging Water for Peace. And we are very pleased as UNESCO really to join this campaign. And just for those who don't know UNESCO, our motto is building peace in the minds of men and women. For the same reason, as you know, UNESCO was created after the World War II. And the idea from UNESCO through science, education, cultures, communication and information is to change the mind, because the idea of war is beginning in the mind. So it's in the mind we have to construct the defense of peace. As you said, Martina, peace is about people. And when we are bringing peace and water, we cannot have peace if we have 2 billion people who still don't have access to water and sanitation. It's a matter of dignity, it's a matter of addressing the inequality so that everyone can at least be able to have access to that important resources. I'm saying this really because, as we all know, the SDG 6 is alarmingly off track. We have the figures, and from our perspective, the best way to leverage water for peace is to find a way to accelerate the achievement of SDG 6. I'm saying it, of course, because of this justice part of the water access and sanitation, but we know that the SDG 6 is going beyond that. We have also other indicators. And if you look at the report I'll cite only one indicator, which is relevant vis-à-vis the issue of cooperation. Only 24 countries have all their transboundary basins areas covered by operational arrangement. And this is little compared to all those systems we know. So we need a lot of effort to bring on board member states and proving that framework cooperation. And I believe that we should strengthen 3 aspects moving forward. The first one is generating of knowledge and its dissemination on the issue of how water is contributing to leverage peace. And in that regard, as you know, within UN Water, on behalf of UN Water, we are preparing the WWDR 2024, which will provide the state of the art on that issue of water and peace, and of course we add prosperity, so that key messages can be used for the campaign. So that knowledge generation is critical. The other thing is on building capacity all across. So here, water education is critical all across the spectrum of education, from kindergarten to higher education, because water is everybody's business, and everybody should understand what is at stake. We should not continue to consider water for granted. We should preserve, use in a wise way water, and conserve it for the future generations. So water education should be considered all across. And also we need to have at the higher education what we call new skills water professionals. Those professionals who are looking water not only at the engineering lens, providing pipe, drill boreholes only, but looking at water in a more holistic, cross-sectorial way. So that is something also on which we are working and mobilizing. As you know, within the UN Water, we have the UN Water Capacity Development Initiative, which is led by UNESCO and UNDESA, with 35 members of UN Water participating, and we want to leverage existing training materials, education materials, and make it available to all. So this is something on which we are engaged. The other element, we should continue promoting water cooperation. The issue of convention, thank you to UNICE, we should continue mobilizing, having more member states signing, engaging themselves in moving forward cooperation within with other countries for which they have been sharing the water system. So in that regard also, as you know, within UNESCO, we are working with UNICE on the 6.5.2 indicator, and we're in charge of the groundwater. And I want to end with the groundwater, because this is a missing element of the water system vis-à-vis the understanding, vis-à-vis the capacity, despite the critical role it's play in achieving SDG 6 and also providing livelihoods and economic development. And we believe that we should continue improving our knowledge base, building capacity on groundwater aspect, and this is why, as you know, we organized last year the groundwater campaign together, the groundwater summit in Paris, and we'll continue doing it within our program of RHP, so as the Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, Phase 9. So groundwater has a key place, And we are looking forward to really continue engaging with you. So to sum it up all, let's address the inequality when it's come to water access. Let's make water everybody business, and let's member states understand the critical importance of cooperating among themselves. So I want once again to thank all the panelists, also the two moderators, the co-coordinator, and also Johannes, the vice chair of UN Water, and all of you who contributed to the success of this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abu. Thank you. So I hope you enjoy our session today. Just a quick final word from my side. Thank you everyone who joined us online and here in this room. So as it was said several times, we can all be an amplifier, a catalyst, a water peace ambassador, as Henk Oving said several times, at our own level. And also on the purpose of the task force and the campaign, I would encourage you to follow the campaign website, worldwaterday.org, as well as reading the joint effort publication of, again, the World Water Development Report from the All UN Water family. So thank you and good afternoon.